Hi everyone, we're just going to go over some of the texturing techniques that I used in class for this building exercise. By no means do you need to duplicate, and nor should you actually do that. What I'm doing, I'm just giving a quick rundown on how to actually create some textures using Photoshop and Maya. So right now inside of Maya, I need to make sure that I can get into my UV editor to save everything out. And I'm just going to go into UV editing. There we go. And I'm going to save this. So I've already laid things out and I'm saving this. Let me browse to where that should be. And this should be going into, for me, it will be underneath my building texture. I'm going to put this into my source images. We'll call this building UVs, and that I'm going to do as a PNG. Apply and close, and now let's open up Photoshop. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to go into my building texture demo, into my scenes, or sorry, not my scenes, my images, or I am tired. Source images, there we go. And I have my UVs. Now I can't see anything. That is because my settings right now have my UVs very, very small. And the first thing I'm going to do is just label this thing as UVs. And now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and add an effect. So right under effects, I'm going to go into here, I'm going to add a stroke, and we're going to just increase that from the center to the inside, and actually let's do outside. Change this color to something I can actually see. Alright, right now it's set to 7 for my size. We don't need it to be that big. About a 1. Probably good. I'm going to actually put that back to center and increase that. Okay, so I have this. I can see that a little bit better now. Now, let's make another layer. And this is how we're going to start our texture. So this layer, if I hit Control G, I've now added that in a group. I'll call this diffuse. And we need to now go into textures. So I want to get that house that I was working on right here. Go back into my standard so I can see this thing. I want maybe some siding, I want some roofing, and some windows. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that along with adding some grunge to break that up. So let's just type in siding. And we have some kind of busted siding right here. It looks a little bit old. We have more like farm or barn type siding here, more older siding. It really depends on the type of house that you're trying to build. That does not really, none of these are interesting to me. And if you can't find it on textures.com, no one's telling you that you can't go on to like Google or something and find an image of a house and be able to use the image you find from there. So I'm not sure if I'm finding something that I like inside of textures.com. Actually, I did. I found this one right here. This will work. I'm going to click on this one. I logged in. I have 15 credits for free. This 1024 by 1024 that's repeating is something I can use. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit download. I know it repeats because it says seamless right there. So I'll hit download. And it's showing up there. I'm going to drag that into my source images. So I'm just going to drag this. Oh, hold on. It's going to happen off screen. So just believe me, it's in there. All right. So I placed that in there. I am now going to go and look up windows. Now, you should be using your own common sense about windows for little houses if you're doing a little house, or windows for gigantic mansions. Everything should sort of fit with the design of your building. So you probably wouldn't want something that would be a cathedral stained glass window on a tiny little shack. That just doesn't really make sense. So it's a good idea to look around for windows that actually would match your design. And I'm not really seeing, of course I'm talking and doing this at the same time, so not really seeing too much stuff that stands out to me. I think maybe, let's see, what's that? Those are probably a little bit too big for the type of window that I want. I'm thinking about the ones, like they have that cross section on it, and like the little white separations in it. Again, you do not need to pick the same exact window that I'm doing. I'm just trying to find something as a demo. And of course, as I do this, it just gets harder and harder because I'm talking and looking at the same time. I might be able to use something like this, because I see something in here that might be usable. So I'm going to download that and just see. I'm going to drag this into my stuff. I need some bricks and some concrete. So let's just type in brick. And I think for this type of a house, I think I'm just going to go with a standard default brick right here. So we'll grab that. And I'm also going to grab some concrete. And that looks pretty good. And I'm also going to grab some grunge, some dirt and stuff I could use. So there's all sorts of different ways that we can work with that. There's like tire streaks, there's this type of stuff. I usually like to work with this and tone it down or move it around. As the demo I gave in class, I think that's pretty good to work with stuff like that. I'm going to use this one, so we'll just download that and put that in there. And remember, I told you guys to look at references of houses. This is what can bite you in your grade. If you're not actually looking at what a little house looks like and you're trying to build this thing, again, you're using mansion windows or like just strange designs. It's really not going to look good, and you're going to get called out for that in your grade. What I think I'm going to do is just type in tiny house. And go to images. These are all the little hipster houses people live in. Not exactly what I'm looking for. But I can sort of get an idea with some of these things what a tiny house would be. But these are even smaller than the main idea I was going for. So this gives me some ideas on how I can mess with trim and divide up my repeating textures. As well as how I can work with it. This is another good one that gives me some ideas. One thing I just realized I forgot was roof, so let's type in roof. And this one's got a nice tin roof. We can go with that, or we can go with like the more traditional roofing. I'll just throw this one in. So we'll grab this one. Okay. Now, I've got all my stuff. I'm going to just bring those into Photoshop. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just holding down Shift and selecting all the stuff that I need. Or if you're grabbing too much stuff and you want to deselect certain things, you can hold down Control after that and deselect things out, or individually select each piece. Hopefully you guys know how to use Windows, I hope. I'm going to click and drag this into Photoshop. So I'm left click dragging this in. You're going to see it's going to go not into here, but drag it right over in the top, and it loads those up. And let's see, first let's work with our roof. So this is the roof I got. I'm going to use that. And to be able to use this, I'm just going to hit Control A to select everything and Control C. And under my buildings UVs.png, I am now going to go into my first layer and hit Control V. Now I pasted that. Now, the way that my UVs are designed, this is the top, that goes to the bottom, so I need to be cognizant of it. But if I put this on here, this means if I were to put a door about this big on here, each shingle is going to be about a foot in size. That's insane. So we need to make sure that we're actually working with this in the proper sizes, or at least try to guesstimate it in the proper way. So to do that, I'm just going to hit Control T to scale. So Control T, and you have your scale. And now if I hold down Shift while I have one of these corners selected and drag that down, I can scale that roofing down to a size that it probably would be a little bit more realistic at. Okay. Now I've only got one of these. So if I wanted to make another one, if I were to hold down Alt and left click drag, I now have another one that I made. You'll see it made another one right there. And it's right here. And this should snap right to that next one. Now I do see a seam. So if I hit the V key to get to move, and then left click arrow, there we go. I got rid of that seam. Now I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to hold down Alt. This time I'm going to hit the right arrow key. So Alt, right arrow key, and made another one of these. Now if I hold down left mouse button, Shift, and drag, it's going to snap it. And again, I'm just going to left arrow key to adjust that one. I'm going to keep going until I have it all the way across. So Alt, right arrow key, holding down Shift, left click drag, and bring it over. Alt, right arrow key, and hold down Shift and left click drag, and there we go. So now I have it going all the way across, but I need it to go down too. This is a good chance where I can select from the top here, hold down Shift, so have this one selected, hold down Shift, go to the bottom one, right click, merge layers. So now, if I hold down the Alt key and press the down arrow key, it will duplicate it. And now if I hold down Shift and left mouse button drag down, I have now duplicated it over here. Now I'm going to merge this one down. So merge down, and now it's one piece. Now we can call this shingles, and we need to mask this so it's not going everywhere, because right now it's actually going beyond where it should be. So this will go into my roof, or my chimney. So I'm going to go and use my marquee selection tool, which is this one right here. And that's my marquee. I'm going to left click over here, drag down, and now press your mask button. So press that button. Okay. So now I have this masked. So it shouldn't be bleeding over into there. And if it is, I can clean that up or have that layer above it. And so let's see what we do, or what we did. So I'm going to save this. So File, Save As. And for whatever reason, my computer's running. There we go. And instead of UVs, let's give this a name of Building Diffuse. Let's go into Maya. And from here, we need to go into our Hypershade. I'm just going to create a blend. And I'm going to go to Color, File, and Building Diffuse. Open. Okay. Now let's apply that to this object. So I'm going to assign the material to selection and change my shading so hardware texturing is on. And I now have this. Now it's super shiny and it's very distracting. So what I can do is just reduce my specularity. I can just bring that down to none for now. And I'll add a texture later for that. So, alright. We're moving on. We got ourselves a piece on here. Now looking at my UVs, I want to be able to bring in some other stuff. I don't need this open anymore. I'll close that. I'm going to use this one now. So I'm going to hit Control A, Control C. I'm going to go into my Building Diffuse PSD, Control V. Alright, this is gigantic. Again, we need to scale that down, Control T. And holding down Shift, right click, drag down. And about this size, we have that. And we can go ahead and move this over. Okay, we have that. I'm going to now hold down the V key, left click, drag to duplicate it, and then once you're done dragging, let go of Alt. Sorry, hold on, let's redo that. So hold down Alt, left click, drag, and then let go of Alt, and then hold down Shift to duplicate it. And I can sort of see a seam, so I'm just going to hit the V key and arrow key over, until that goes away. I'm going to duplicate that one more time. Alt, left click, drag, and then let go of Alt and hold down Shift to snap. And we have that here. Left click or Alt, right click to duplicate, hold down Shift and left mouse button drag. Okay. And let's merge all these down. So merge layers. And we're gonna go and Alt arrow key up and bring this up. And let's make sure that there's no seam. So V key, down arrow bit, and then merge down. So now that I have this, I'm going to bring this over and bring this down. And I'm just going to make sure that that one siding on the bottom lines up with that top. And there we go. And let's mask it. So we're going to use my marquee selection first. Just go across here. And that's pretty good. I'm actually now going to use my polygon lasso tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and I'm going to draw some triangles out. And when the Alt key is held down, it's actually deselecting anything you have selected. So it's a very nice way, just cleaning up some stuff. And all right, now I'm going to mask that. So now this is masked. I'm going to turn this off, Control S. And now I'm going to go into Maya. And there we go. There's that first piece right here. Okay, so now what we need to do is go into the side view to add that next piece of siding. And since I didn't actually delete out any pixels here, I could duplicate this layer. So right click, duplicate layer. And now I'm going to delete that mask. And I'm going to use my move tool. So V, and hold down Shift, drag straight up. There we go. Now I'm going to mask this one. So if I mask this one, I'm going to use my marquee selection tool, drag across here, and then mask. So now, turn that off, Control S, let's check our progress. Okay, everything has some siding on it. Let's go ahead and add ourselves some more stuff. So let's add a window. So if we were to add a window, let's go into Photoshop. And let's see. Now, this may be too small. I think it's, if I were to try and zoom in on this, it's blurring out. I don't want to use that. It's not really going to represent a window with enough detail for me. So I'm going to go back onto textures and let's type in window again. See what we can find that's a little bit of a better quality for us. And again, we can look at references of houses that have windows. Because houses have windows, right? And we can try and find something that would match, I think, the design that we're going for. I like the idea of that white trim around that too. So maybe we can replicate that, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly. It's really the idea. What I'm going for is a wooden window. That might be able to work. I think I'm going to use that. So I'm going to download this one. And I'm going to add that to my textures. Just trust that I added that to my textures folder. Close this because I don't need it. I also don't need this one anymore, so I'll close that. And I'm going to drag this in. So again, I'm dragging this here. I'm going to grab this section right here. And I'm going to hit Control C. And Control V. Okay, so that's looking a little bit wonky, right? There's some reflections in it. There's some things that I probably don't want to use. So I can work with that though. What I'll have to do is just kind of clean up that bottom panel to make it look similar to these. And that's actually a pretty easy thing to do. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go into my marquee selection tool again, go and select these pixels, and I'm going to use my clone stamp tool, which is this one right here. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to left click here. That's going to sample an area. Now I can paint that area into this. But you'll notice if I go in certain areas, like notice where that cursor is over there, I'm going into certain spots I don't want to tweak. So if I click here and I start here, I need to make sure I'm not getting over any of those wooden planks or anything like that. And you can sample multiple times and in multiple spots. And soon you should have a window that no one would really know was duplicated. So now I have this. Now it doesn't look like it exists in the same area, so that's okay. What I'm going to do is use this bottom wooden part and make an entire new wooden frame. So I'm going to grab from here to here. I'm going to deselect some of that. So I'm holding down the Alt key to deselect. So I have this. I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to go into my texture, Control V. I have this now. I'm going to label this as window, and I'm going to group these. So holding down Shift and selecting both of those, group, window, and this next one, I'm going to add some depth to it to make it look like it's in front of everything else. I'm going to go into my effects and add a drop shadow. So, drop shadows, you never want to use black. Black is not your friend in shadows. It should be a dark color of your, whatever it is that it's bouncing light off of. And right now that's actually like browns and oranges for this. So, wood and that painted wood right there. So, if I go with something like that, that makes a lot more sense. And my angle, if I increase my distance, you'll see this will control where that is going to go. I don't want that distance to go too far, and I also want that angle to probably be top down. So lighting top down, increase that spread a little bit and that size, and now it actually looks like it exists in front of this piece. I'm gonna hit OK. I want one on top, so I'm gonna right click, duplicate, hit OK, and then holding down Shift, left click, drag. I have one on top. Now, what else can I do? Well, in the references that I've been looking at, there's some trim that I can add. There is maybe some bricks and stuff I can add, or some concrete around the foundation. And so that's pretty easy to do with the foundation. And we're going to do that right now by going into the brick. We'll sample some of this like that. Hit Control C, Control V, and I'm actually gonna, I pasted that in my window, so let me left click drag that out. I'm gonna put this underneath everything else, so put that underneath, and there's a reason for it. I'm gonna also hide, I'm gonna group these first. I'm gonna call that siding. Alright, let me hide that one. I'm gonna move this down. We don't need a lot. That's just enough. And I'm gonna left click Alt drag to duplicate it. That's good. And left click Alt drag. Left click Alt drag. Okay. Now I'm not sure if these match up 100%, and I'm gonna show you guys how to check that, because if I save this, so if I hit Control S and go into Maya, you'll notice there's an issue right there. Obviously right there too, but right here there's an issue because these are not at the same height. So I want the height of my concrete to be the same all the way around. And the easy way to do that is I'm just going to make a rectangle. And I'm going to go from the bottom of my UVs up. Now, I'm going to take that, and if I hold down Shift, left click, drag, and align that with this one right here, I can see that where that difference is. So if I grab these two and then move those down, I now have this at the same height. I can delete my rectangle, and I'm gonna hit Control S, save it, open it again. That's way better. Okay, now let's mask this off. Easy way we can mask this. We'll use the mask for this for the siding. So I'll hit Control and left click on my mask. It's gonna grab all of that, and now hold down Shift and hold down Control and left click on the other mask. Now we have both masks selected. So with all of that, I'm going to grab all of these, merge them together. So now it's one piece of concrete. Make a mask, and now it's masking off that same section. Unfortunately, though, it is being hidden by my siding. So that's pretty easy to fix. To do that, I'm just going to grab this, and I'm going to bring that up above the siding. So now that I have that above the siding, I also see there's some other areas I have to get rid of for this. That's easy. I'm going to grab this mask for my concrete. I'm going to marquee select and drag across this spot. And I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and whoop, Edit, Fill. And what this is going to do with the black, because it was already on black, is fill all of the area of the marquee selection in, so that way it looks like it is just the bottom part of our house. Now, what I can do here is take my concrete and I'm going to add a shadow. So I'm going to go into a, let's try inner shadow. What this is going to do, and you'll see right away, it gives me that little thin line all the way across, just to allow for it to seem like the siding is actually above that part. I'm going to hit OK. Control S. Go into Maya. Alright, that's looking better. Now I have some adjustments. I have to put in the door. I have to put in the bricks for the chimney. So I'll add the chimney. I'm going to hit Control V. Again, these bricks are gigantic. Whoop. Don't want to do that. Okay. So I'm going to drag these over. Control T. And I'm going to rotate it by holding down Shift and left clicking and dragging around the outside. Now that I have that, I'm going to again hold down Shift, left click, drag it down. Whoop. And now, if I were to go into this, left click, drag, I'm going to merge both of these. Left click, drag, holding down Shift so it locks. Alright. Now if I turn that off, Control S. In Maya, I should see some bricks. Now I would naturally have some shadow underneath this area of the roof. That's an easy thing to do as well. So if I were to go into this, I'm also going to group these, and I'm going to call that my bricks or chimney. Okay. And this I'm going to group just so I can have it there, and we'll call that concrete. And alright, so we got everything there. Let me add some shadows underneath the roof line, and to do that I'm going to go into a new layer, and I'm just going to drag across with my marquee selection, maybe to about here. Now that I have that, I am going to go into my edit, fill, hit OK. That color probably will work. It's going to be for shadow, so it's a kind of dark gray. And what I can do here is set this to like a multiply. And I'm also going to use a technique. I'm also going to drop off that opacity, because that's pretty intense. But I'm going to use something where if I go into filter, blur, and use a motion blur, up and down, you'll notice what it's doing. It's fuzzing out. You don't want to go too far because it's just going to fuzz everything out to the point where you can't see it. But you want just kind of a little bit of a hint of a shadow on this. And by using a motion blur on this, it actually accomplishes that pretty well. So I'm going to hit Control S again, and let's look at what that did. All right, cool. Probably a little too intense still. I would use that around the house in quite a few areas, along with this spot right here. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I do need to do, this doesn't look real. If we look at this spot, there should be like a division here. Roof line, if we just Google that. Again, you don't need to be someone that knows how to make this stuff, but you need to understand that by observing things, every object in the world is made in a certain way. Roof lines always have that little bit of a separation there, and I'm going to add that to mine as well. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, and let's say that we have, let's see. I'm just going to use one of these repeating chunks of siding to do this. So I'm going to go and maybe sample. Let's sample this one right here. So I'm going to left click and drag across this piece. All right, Control C. Whoop. Control C. Why don't you want to behave? Oh, because it's masked. Okay, there we go. Control C. So I have it. That was because it was empty. This one is not. So Control C, Control V. I'm going to move this up. And is that my shadow that I didn't name? Yep. Let me label it. Roof shadow. And we'll call this, well, actually, we'll work with it and then rename it. But first, let's get this over here. And I'm going to hit Control T and rotate this so that way it follows the angle of my roof. So if I do this right here and bring this over, I'm going to turn this into white. I think that's going to look a lot nicer than what it is right now. So that's looking pretty good, but it's obviously going a little bit too far, and it's really not matching up the way I want it to. So one of the first things I can do is go into my adjustment layers, and I'm going to press this one right here, hue and saturation. So before I do anything else, I'm going to hold down Alt and left click right here, and that's going to give me this hue and saturation adjustment layer only on this piece. If I didn't do it the whole thing, every single layer would be influenced by this. I don't want to do that. I'm going to reduce my saturation on this. I'm also going to go into my lightness and lighten it up. That's so much better. Okay. Now, I don't need that to be used anymore, but I'm going to leave it alone. And I'm going to group it. I'm going to call it work roof line. And I'm going to duplicate that and merge it. So right click merge group. Now we just have that shape. It's going a little bit too far. So I'm going to go into my polygon lasso tool again, grab this and mask it. Turn off the other one. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to duplicate that one and drag it out. Control T, rotate it in the opposite direction. Put it into this roof line over here. And I'm just using the arrow keys to position this into place. And I can see I have to fix that one spot right there. So I'm going to use the V key to go into my move tool, make sure I have that, and just do this. It looks like I'm off a little bit on the top, so I'm gonna go into my mask and I'm gonna flip that to white, use my brush, and actually paint this back in. My flow is okay, but my opacity was missing, so there we go. So I painted that in, and I'm gonna paint that part in and turn that off. All right, that's looking okay. Let's again add some shadows. So I'm gonna merge these two together. So I'm gonna group them together first in case I ever needed to work with them again. And roof line, and duplicate this one, merge it, and now let's take this, do a drop shadow. And that's pretty good actually for the color, but it's too intense for my liking, so I'm going to reduce the opacity, and there we go. Okay, Control S. Alright, it's starting to take on a look of a house instead of it just being a blank slate. Now you can see if I add one across here, if I look at references, there's one usually across there, and I can add a window across the top. That will give me even more depth to this. So if I do that, just duplicating, well, let me just go into here, duplicate that layer. I'm going to drag that one out. And I'm going to merge, or actually, hold on, let me make a new layer, put that underneath this, and this layer, merge that down. That way I just have this layer right here to work with. I'm going to copy the layer style of the shadow. So right click, copy the layer style, paste the layer style, Control T to rotate it. Alright, and now just Control T, and I'm going to actually just scale it. So I'm going to drag out that one, and let's drag that one out. Okay. Turn that off. That's pretty good looking. Control S. Now if I wanted to and add another window, I could just go into here and just right click, duplicate that group, move it over. It's obviously way too big, so we can hit Control T, scale it down, and kind of move that into position, Control S, and now I have this section here. Last but not least, I want to show you, I'm going to add some grunge to this to make it look like kind of a gross house. And if I use something like this, I can go in and I'm going to marquee, or I'm going to use a lasso on it. So I'm going to go kind of try to grab pieces that are similar. I don't want to have it seem like there's a separation in this. So I think this will work. I'm going to hit Control C, Control V. Let's put this like right here. And I'm going to move this up to the top. And I'm going to call that, I'm going to Control G, grunge. It can be grime, grunge, whatever you want to call it. Now with this here, I can set that as something like maybe an overlay. You can see how that does something. If you want to toggle between these, just use your up and down arrows, and it'll cycle between your different ways to do that. Darker color is actually not bad, and if I drop my opacity, that's actually looking pretty good. I think I'll work with that. It's too big. If I hit Control T and scale it, does that? No, that wouldn't work. So let's first just scale this in this way. And let's paint a mask for this to clean it up. So let's see if we can do that. So if we were to paint a mask, I'm going to create an alpha, and I'm going to use my brush tool, and I'm going to go into my brush, and let's go into let's try the dry media brushes here. So I'm just scrolling through here, and we're just looking for something that can paint some sort of sponge work on here, because what we're going to do is actually paint out some of this, because it's a little bit too intense. So right now my opacity, I'm going to drop that down to maybe 67 or something, and just start to paint. Now, if I was using a Wacom tablet, I could get that even nicer on here. But as you can see, I can quickly get rid of some of this grunge, but still keep it so it doesn't have a harsh edge to this when I was deleting it. So this is an easy way to just kind of funk that up a little bit. So if I hit Control S and go into here, there's some grunge on this. All right, last but not least, what if we don't like the color of our house? So if we don't like the color, let's just say the shingles are not working for us. They're blue, and we wanted, I don't know, purple or orange or something. So that's an easy thing to do. I'm actually going to go and select my shingles layer, go to my adjustments layer, and I'm going to go into my hue and saturation. So if I click on that, and I just start to drag this, you'll notice it'll change colors for me. Not all that impressive, but it does allow for us to kind of change that. We can also go into like adjusting things for like getting out the reds or greens and blues. I'm going to stay in master and change that. I'm also going to like desaturate it a little bit because I don't want it to look like brand new. I'm also going to duplicate this grunge, and roofs tend to have slime and grunge on the top of them. So let's do that. Control S. It's getting there. So this is how you'll start to build this thing up. I haven't done all of it, obviously, but these are some of the main techniques that we've been talking about in class, and hopefully this is helpful.